Hello, if inside the corporate Arcadia is about the way that buildings represent themselves from within, outside the corporate Arcadia is about the relationship that these buildings establish with their surrounding, with the facade, the building plot, but also to the whole district, and finally to the overall balance of district devoted to office buildings and corporations within the city. Issues at stake include real estate, of course, and land value, but also urban development, public space and its privatization, and the negotiation with the public authorities, the facade's expression mostly, and finally the balance between a kind of a building that usually looks inward, because as I said, it creates a city within a city where every function can be done from within, but also a building that needs to have a public facade and so to present itself to the city. So the theme of outside the corporate Arcadia in the exhibition is principally represented by 4 elements. The first one is the reenactment of a lecture that Rem Koolhaas gave at Beaux-Arts in 2003 called La prise de l'Europe, the takeover of Europe, in which he not only addresses the issues with the iconography or the imageability of the European institutions, but it traces a link with what he defines as the trauma, the genealogy of the trauma of Brussels. That is, the way that Brussels suffered from the modernization after the First World War, of the junction, of the 58 exhibitions, etc. And so he makes a link between the lack of representativity of these buildings, like the Justus Lipsius, the European Parliament, or other buildings that embody European institutions, with a strong architectural quality that could be expected for such an important program. And it traces it back to a movement in the 70s and 80s called the reconstruction of European city, that saw figures such as Leon Krier or Maurice Culot try to struggle against the bureaucratization of Brussels and the increasing industrialization and Americanization of its architecture. This brings to the second example, that is the trajectory of Shefik Birki and his Atelier d'Art Urbain. Now it's called Vision. And actually it is the story that we collected in an interview with him of how a few left-wing engaged students for the preservation of the historic city started via experiences in the United States to actually pass from the decision not to build, that was the dogma at the time, to the will to build and to build good. And to do so, they had to shake hands with promoters in Brussels, and to be strong enough to put forward their own proposals, they needed to incorporate in the architectural firm engineers, fluid experts, also economy, design, and quantity surveyors, etc. And I think this story went even further, to the point that at a certain moment they started to be their own clients when they raised a great amount of money to create new developments in the city. So they were at once the client and the architect and the engineer and the landowner. This is very impressive, especially when you compare it to the third example that we offer in Corporate Arcadia, also in the magazine. That is the interview held with Manfredo Tafuri in '86, a very rare interview that we republished, in which he kind of states something that is both relieving and very depressive or deceiving for architects. When talking with privately owned large amounts of land in the city, especially in the case is Milan. He describes how the role of the architect is no longer to provide a solid master plan that will be followed by the client and the public authorities, but simply to provide an image of the future development, the possibility of development of the place. This is because architects no longer have something to say and no longer are in control of what actually will be built, because these processes take a long time. And so, which is of course very depressing, but it is also relieving because it kind of gives up the idea that an engaged architect can struggle for his own way of understanding architecture. So I think that these two aspects, both Shefik Birki's trajectory and Manfredo Tafuri, kind of show these oscillations that are possible and for which I think a good debate could ensue. Thank you.